I'd like to call this meeting of the Board of Zoning, Clark County Board of Zoning Appeals to order. This is Wednesday, September 18th, 2024. And we are thankful that you all are here to participate in this meeting, but we would like to ask for your cooperation in a few minutes. Mr. Naham will read the rules.
Good evening, folks. To start with, if you have a cell phone, please turn it off or put it on vibrate so that it doesn't ring during the meeting. The applicant, in each case this evening, has the right to speak once for a total time limit of 15 minutes. There is no rebuttal time allowed for the applicant. One person from each household that received a letter regarding an application tonight will be invited to speak once after the applicant speaks. The adjoining neighbors' time limits are 3 minutes each, and there's no rebuttal. Board members may ask questions of anyone who speaks tonight. And if you're asked a question, please don't make a speech, just answer the question. Discourteous, disorderly, or contemptuous conduct is regarded as a breach of peace, as is clapping or any verbal response to anyone's statements or presentation. The chairman will warn anyone I have to read these according to law. The chairman will warn anyone in violation of the rules at the time of the violation. If anyone receives a third warning, that would indicate you're leaving the meeting, and if you fail to leave, law enforcement will be called. For those people who may have any questions about drainage issues, please understand that this board doesn't have drainage expertise. The county has a special drainage board that hears drainage issue questions. And any project that disturbs, I believe, over 1 acre has to go before that board and get approval and comply with whatever conditions that board imposes. The chairman may also terminate any repetitious or irrelevant presentation. If a neighbor has said something and you want to get up and repeat the same thing, these are intelligent people on the board. They hear the comment the first time, so it doesn't help if it gets repeated 10 times. That's all the rules, and thank you for listening.
Thank you. All right, the first item of business tonight on this agenda is docket 2024-16-BZA. It's a use variance permit multifamily development within a light industrial M1 zoning at 510 Crone Road in Memphis, Indiana. The applicant is Crone Road Partners, LLC. Looks like you're on your way to speak to this matter.
Good evening, Alex Gaddis, Soltine and Ogden, 428 Mains Avenue, Jeffersonville.
Thank you.
Jason Copperway with Paul Primavera and Associates, 301 East Chestnut Street, Corydon, Indiana.
Thank you.
So yes, this is an application for a use variance on property. It's currently zoned light industrial. And this doesn't look like the normal use variance I know that you're used to seeing. But there's a good reason for that. When we originally began this application, actually what we were going to do is submit a PUD to the plan commission. But that would have allowed for mixed uses, including multifamily residential and those some of those that were already allowed under the light industrial. But at that time, Amy Williams had advised that given the size of the property at just under 5 acres, it would have been difficult to differentiate the districts within that PUD. So she suggested that we instead submit the application for the use variance to add multifamily residential as a use to the list of already available uses under the M1 zoning designation. However, the goal for the ultimate development of this property was and still is multifamily residential. My client believes that this is the highest and best use for the property at this time. However, given the current economic and political climate in this country, that could easily change before we get to the point of submitting a development plan. which means that seeking a zone change to R4 would be a mistake. My client needs this variance to begin to plan the next steps in the development, but if things change in such a way that makes multifamily residential development a mistake, my client's going to let the use variance expire and develop the property in accordance with its current M1 designation. All that said, the development of this property as multifamily residential would be a benefit to the residents of Clark County. It would further the county's goals as stated in the comprehensive plan, and the request satisfies the 5 elements we must prove to justify your approval. As to element A, the approval of the use variance will not be injurious, but will rather benefit the public health, safety, morals, and general welfare of the community because it will provide much needed affordable housing options to the residents of Clark County. As it is now, it could be developed into a used car lot or a mortuary. As compared to the alternative, multifamily residential use would be a huge benefit, so this element is satisfied. As to element B, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the use variance will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because the proposed use is consistent with surrounding uses and zoning designations. Property to the west and south is undeveloped R1. The property to the north and west is M1 and B3, and then there is a portion that actually abuts Interstate 65. Clearly, development of this property as multifamily residential will not impact the value of the B3 or M1 adjoining properties. So the question is whether and how it will impact the value of the R1 property to the west. I submit that any kind of residential use on this property would have a positive effect on the use and value of the neighboring R1 because it is more consistent with R1 use than industrial use is. Accordingly, the proposed use will provide the perfect transition from the higher impact uses closer to the 65. We have the B3, like I mentioned, then we have this M1, and then R1, moving from east to west. And the residential uses to the west and the use and value of the nearby properties will benefit from the approval of the use variance. As to element C, the need for the use variance arises from a condition peculiar to the property in that it is situated such that it borders both residential and industrial zone land, as well as Interstate 65 and business, highway business, actually B3. The use of any given property is essentially measured in terms of its impact. This property is very peculiar in that it is zoned light industrial, but is bordered on its east by B3 and on its west by R1. The undesirable result, moving from east to west, we go from lower impact business uses to higher impact industrial uses to the lowest impact residential use defined in the UDO at all. Accordingly, there is a condition peculiar to the property that gives rise to the need for this use variance. As to element D, the strict application of the terms of the UDO will constitute an unnecessary hardship if applied to the property because the UDO does not allow for the proposed use, and the use it does allow for does not comport with the surrounding uses. Our original plan was to rezone to a PUD, but based on the size of the property and consultation with staff at the time, this was the most viable course. As for the last element, approval of this use variance will further the implementation of the comprehensive plan. Approval will, quote, expand services and facilities to rural communities of the county and, quote, guide the development of housing to support current and future needs, both of which are top goals of the comprehensive plan, pages 10 and 18. The stated strategy for achieving these goals is to focus on encouraging a diverse range of housing developments, which is precisely what is being proposed with this use variance request. So accordingly, I believe that we do meet each of the necessary elements to justify your approval of this use variance. I do want to point out one aspect of the staff report that I would like to make a request with respect to. The second from the last full paragraph on the last page indicates that if that a motion to approve should include a reference that development for multifamily should substantially comply with the submitted site plan. I fully agree, and my client 100% will agree that if the property is ultimately developed for multifamily residential use, it will substantially comply with the submitted site plan. However, in the event that it can't be developed for residential use, I would ask that that not be a condition of the ultimate approval. So I think, Jason, do you have anything to add?
I just wanted to go over, I think you, through this process, and the project was tabled a couple of times. I think you've seen two different site plans. The first plan was prepared sort of in support of the first regime to apply for a planned new development. Staff pointed out that if this remains up M1 with the use variance, that there are significant buffer yards, and so I updated the plan to show you what those buffer yards would be. From M1 to R1, you have buffer yard H, which is a 50-foot landscape area, vegetative area with a wall and a berm, and then adjacent to the B3 use on the northeast side would be a buffer yard G, which is a 30 feet of landscape area with fence and a berm. So pretty substantial buffering from M1, which would carry forward to multifamily use, which would even be more buffering than what an R4 would require to R1. So just want to point that out, that leaving it R1 and adding the multifamily use still provides for very significant buffering from adjacent properties. I think that would be happy to answer any questions.
So you said that if this doesn't pass, then they'll pursue the M1 zoning and do something.
Well, it's already zoned M1,
Right.
so they certainly have a right to develop the property today in accordance with those requirements and those uses. Obviously, their preference would be to add the multifamily. I think that's what their preference for this property is, assuming, as Alex said, assuming the economy stays the way it is.
And you want to leave the remainder of the property in one,
The whole property is in M1 now.
but you want to keep it. You don't want to put this variance on the entire property, you just want to put it on a certain portion.
No, it's on the entire property. It is. It's only,
So you would have no intent to use it for more, that allowable use on that one.
Not if this variance request is granted.
it'll either be developed as multifamily, all multifamily, or it will be developed as M1 in some form if the multifamily doesn't move forward. But they fully intend to move forward with multifamily at this point.
Or if
Like that makes sense.
unforeseen circumstances make it not a viable option anymore. We understand that. I think that if you were to approve the use variance, it would be good for 2 years to get a development plan submitted and approved. I think. And the goal would be to move forward with the residential development so long as things in the economy don't change.
The proposed buffering, do we have a copy of that, or is that?
It should be the latest site plan that was in the staff report.
Yeah, the site plan, I mean, it shows the buffer area, it doesn't show the actual trees.
So that's what's on
that time.
the drawing we have here.
Right.
It may be on the larger
The
drawing.
ordinance is
But
pretty
not in-
specific on that.
Is the verbiage of it in there also, like what he said?
It's in the ordinance, you know, they have
Okay.
specific number of trees per foot.
And I included the language on the site plan for clarity. Yes.
And just to summarize one of the points Jason was making, if we retain the M1 zoning designation, but add the proposed use of multifamily residential, the buffer between the R1 is actually greater than if it were zoned R4. So that actually provides additional buffering and protection to the R1 than it would if it were R4.
And you're saying this is a recommendation by Ms. Williams to not do a rezone?
As an alternative to the PUD, yes, because I actually had already started drafting the PUD. And I was going back and forth with Ms. Williams. This was maybe late spring or early summer. But her recommendation to me was that based on the size of the property, it would have been impractical to differentiate the uses of the PUD within the boundaries of the property, and that she suggested a use variance would be a better alternative to achieve this goal specifically.
Could you not accomplish what you want to accomplish now if it was changed to different zone?
Well, technically, it's possible. However, that would mean that if the economy blows up in our face and World War III starts, he wouldn't have.
We can always come in for a rezone. Again,
Well, either way, if we did rezone it, we would lose we'd actually expand the development into what it now provides as a buffer. So you get more of a buffer if we get this use as opposed to a rezone.
Well, if they did a rezone, they could also offer that same buffering.
But the R4 would also allow the same amount of apartments. Is that correct?
I don't know.
Yes.
I think it would. Actually, probably more because of the reduced buffering.
That's a 50-foot buffer, right?
The M1 requires a 50-foot buffer between M1 and R1.
Yeah, so the whole length of the property going north and south, 25 feet wide, I'm sure you could get one.
The use variance preserves the flexibility to use the existing uses that are allowed in M1 while adding the multifamily, again, in case something happens and they want to go back to storage units or something like that. It leaves that flexibility in place while still providing the additional protections that the M1 buffer requires.
But once the apartments start, then the rest of the M1 use is gone.
That's correct. That would be correct.
Just on the size of the lot, and the square footage required for each unit, it would allow 97 homes in the R4. That's assuming that they could provide the parking for that number of units, so it'd probably be substantially less than that. But
I think our original site plan, when it was proposed, when we were looking at PUD, was 96 units. Because of the additional buffer yards that the M1 requires, this plan shows 72 units. And I believe that's the maximum we could do in an M1, even with the use variance.
And all other requirements, height requirements for multifamily, the structure, the square footage, all that would apply the same as.
I would suggest R4 development standards should apply. Except for the buffer.
If you're proposing go above and beyond for the buffer.
But we'll meet the M1, which is required.
Any more questions? Thank you.
Thank you.
Folks, I forgot to mention one thing. If you're invited to speak tonight, please come up to the table up front where these gentlemen were seated. And the first thing you need to tell us is your name and address.
you can read down the list of adjoining property owners. We've got Wildcat Project LLC. Is there anybody here to represent them? Jason and Anna Campbell. Kings and Bills Homes.
Wait a minute, here he's coming.
Hello, my name is, I've got something written up to read here, so sorry if I'm looking down at my phone while I'm reading. Hello, my name is Jason Campbell and I live in Kingslandfield subdivision. I'm concerned about the requested rezoning as stated by Infinity Homes as affordable housing.
Can you state your address?
Yes, it's 675 Sun Studio Drive in Memphis. If these proposed apartments are built, it will cause safety and traffic issues for residents. Crum Road has been in need of repairs for years. I have lived here 9 years and it's never been paved, just patches that don't last. And I have sent requests to have some parts or all repaved and have never been contacted. What would almost approximately 140 cars due to our road now that would be using that per day to the already congested roadways with 3 truck stops there now, that's located there now. If the original plan for storage buildings in this location is followed through with, this would not cause as much traffic and utility usage. We also have very low water pressure and always have. I've lived in the subdivision for 9 years. And per the water company, we are on the low side of the minimum requirement for our water pressure. There are people in our neighborhood that cannot even use certain sprinklers because we don't have enough water pressure to power the sprinklers. So that's a concern of ours, that if 72 apartments go in and are using our water, what is that going to do to all of our homes? I've contacted the water company, and they stated that Champions Point, that's down the road from us, had to put in a water pump, which they had to pay for themselves. So that's a concern of mine, that if we get to that point, our HOA would be responsible for that ourselves. Also, per my research, apartments do increase crime rates in the area, and you can look that up. That's proven fact. And also, we're also concerned with any kind of government vouchers that would be accepted. That would also possibly increase the crime rate. I appreciate your time, and I request that you will deny this request for the variance. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, we got Kingsland Fields Homeowners Association. That's Asset Management LLC.
I'm here, but I don't have any comment.
Ashley Renee and Jeremy Allen Hopper. That's the list.
Thank you. Okay, that closes that meeting section to public comment. Do we have any comments from our board?
Do want to offer comments to the public for 1 minute?
We discussed that and
I'm sorry, say that again.
the 1 minute.
You can do that, but why don't you first ask how many people would want to speak?
Limited.
Yeah, well,
Okay, here's what we'll
it
do.
could be unfair if you let some people speak more.
Are there any other people who'd like to speak to this matter tonight? Would you raise your hand? Let's just get a count on. I see 3. Okay, what we'll do is give each of you 3 a minute. If you would come forward right here in the black shirt, give your name and address, please.
Thank you. My name is Mike Rankin, and I live at 822 Kings Court. And I'm here to request that this variance be denied in its entirety. The property in question is currently zoned M1. M1 land use does not permit any residential use. The UDL states that the BZA shall make decisions regarding variances and use in accordance with Indiana Code 36-7-4-918.4. The BZA shall find that 5 standards have all been satisfied. They have not been satisfied. Lack of infrastructure and EMS services is a direct threat to public safety. The application reads the property to the south is undeveloped R1. This is not true. These are $350,000 plus homes. The zone is currently M1 and would be more appropriately utilized as M1 like several other close by businesses. This variance does not follow existing development patterns. I would also like to point out that Chrome Road is not classified as a minor arterial road. Thank you.
Okay, the gentleman standing in the back.
Bobby Wendell, I own some property at 1613 Chrome Road. I think just what I've found out on the 185 acre tract that I just wanted to bring to the attention that you guys may not be aware of or may. But this conservatory subdivision that they're kind of starting, it just really got approved 2 years ago. And I don't even think there's actually been one actually done yet. But I just wanted everyone to know on the board here that that actually is for high density type development. It's pretty much taking 25% out of a parcel of property and using it for green land. So that would mean creeks, lowland can be the green land. So that's just something, and high density, when I say that, it's R3 is what these developments can do now. So any land in Clark County, 50 acres or more, has creeks and lowland. That probably includes up to 20-25%. So that's just something I wanted to bring up. It does affect this decision.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, there was a lady over here on the right. Okay, you can, much.
Hello, my name is Kara Kennedy, and I live at 11370 East Blue River Road in Peachtree, Indiana. As was discussed earlier, according to Indiana code that the BZA is regarded or supposed to use in accordance, it reads, any land use not listed for a particular zoning district or not being sufficiently similar as described shall be prohibited. It also states for land uses not listed, the administrator shall attempt to determine if it is similar. The unlisted use does not meet the following code for classified to be similar, for it to be classified as similar, which includes intensity, character, accessory, potential, and intent. Intensity is in regards to the number of people using a space. Well, there will be far more amount of activity from 72 apartments than there would ever have been or ever be from an M1 zone business. As far as character, it is unlisted use has similar physical characteristics. No, apartments have no business hours. The buildings and the parking lots will take up the entirety of the 5 acres.
Thank you.
Thank you guys, appreciate it.
Okay, now, for the second time, I think that closes the business portion of this docket. The public portion.
Sorry, pardon me, I have a question, if that's okay. Will the written statements that were submitted to this board be read?
Those have all been distributed to the members.
They have, even the ones that were presented tonight, 8 minutes before the meeting, they've all been read in full?
I can't tell you they've been read, they've been distributed.
Okay.
Thank you, please sit down.
Can I call attention to your rules and regulations?
I'm sorry, miss.
Section 8D?
You please need to sit down, please. Thank you. Okay. So, you want to read the findings of fact? Or?
At the first finding, both either way.
In here.
And then your package,
Right.
and your motion should include finding those facts that support your decision one way or the other.
You know what, she read that, chapter 5 on approval and denial. But on approval, if we don't feel like all those are met, then that's the head's ground.
That would be met. To follow up on his point, to approve, you have to find positive on each one of the elements. If you're voting to deny the application, then if they failed on any one of the issues, then that determines the fact that the variance is denied.
adjacent properties could be affected by this. Now, they could also be affected, it's an M1.
Yeah.
But that's a chance they need for us to pass the special exception. I mean, I can't make a motion to pass it just based on number 2, to me.
Now, I'm looking at number 3, that the subject property does have value for use other than the proposed use by the applicant.
So, just want some input.
I mean, some of the other commercial uses that could be automotive repair, it could be all kinds of, it's all live, it could be,
If that's the choice,
right.
we're giving them more options by passing this. So the motion to deny based on, you have to read each of the 5 or just the one that you would base that?
If you're basing it on the document in your folder,
Yes.
I would base it on 2 and 3A.
Mm-hmm.
and if you have any changes in any of those findings, you can make an observation.
Well, then I'll make a motion to deny based on number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property, including the variance, will not be affected in a substantially adverse manner because multifamily use is less intensive than other uses permitted by right. 3A, no feasible alternative is available within the terms of the ordinance, which achieves the same goals of the applicant. They've already stated that if they don't do the apartments, they've got plans for the property.
Well,
Those are on
your
your
motion
side.
was to, I think, to deny that you were reading from the,
But I think the value of the property will be,
Okay. Yeah, we can strike the use and value and, let's see, well, that's right. The way this is worded in the sample is that, they fail to provide the burden of proof or satisfy the burden of proof that the value of the property would not be affected in an adverse manner.
I see that, okay.
If you want to go with number 2 and 3A, I guess the rest of them could be striked, couldn't they, Dave, and it would still be a valid set of findings.
So on the denial side, number 2 and 3A, do I need to read those?
are you moving to approve the proposed findings as they're typed, or are you changing?
As typed on the denial.
Okay. Are you adding any changes to the findings?
No.
Okay, I believe that's your motion.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion after that? Okay. All in favor of the motion presented?
Aye.
Any opposed? Aye. Okay, motion passed.
Okay,
The application was denied for special exception of use for 510 Chrome Road.
They can't come in for a rezon if they wish, correct? They can't come in for a rezon if they wish.
I can't come in for a rezon.
Yes.
Okay. Just want to make everyone aware that they could come in for a rezon and accomplish the same goal. By right, they could not be denied the development.
Okay, second item B on our agenda is docket 2024-17-BZA. We want a development standards variance to increase permitted gross floor area at 7621 Highway 62, Charlestown, Indiana. The applicant owner is The Point at River Ridge LLC.
Chase Blakeman, Paul Primavera and Associates, 301 East Chestnut Street, Corden, Indiana. We're here asking for a development standards variance for gross square footage building area for 3 multifamily buildings on Stacy Road. This increase would be roughly 16% larger than what the maximum permitted gross square footage is. The reasoning that we're here, the 3 points that were requested by the board to satisfy to grant this approval would be that the approval of this variance would not be interest in public health and safety and morals, the welfare of the community, with gross structure is substantially less than what exists in the immediate area. This property is zoned for multifamily use by right and conforms to the existing structures and uses in the surrounding general area. Number 2, the use and value of the area adjacent to the property included in the variance will not be affected substantially in an adverse manner. If this variance is not granted, the proposed development by right will just include more buildings that do fit within that 10,000 square foot gross square footage area. Same amount of units, just 6 buildings instead of 3. The strict application of the zoning ordinance will result in practical difficulties for this property owner and property because the resulting design, which would include more buildings, would come at a higher cost for the developer, which could in turn then be reflected on future residents just to kind of combat the cost of building and development. And that's pretty much it. You all saw me last month for a height variance for these buildings as well. That would still go forward with multiple buildings that fit within the 10,000 gross square footage area as well. And if you all have any questions about anything.
Okay, thank you.
I got a question. So if we pass the height variance,
Yes, sir.
so I see the square footage, but how many units? Like originally there was how many units and how many now?
So the issue that came, we had originally proposed these building sizes, but our original variance did not include the size, just because it was something that it was a mix-up on our part. We missed that portion of things in the application. So we had originally only asked for the height variance as requested, and we missed the maximum gross square footage, or ground square footage, I'm sorry. So each building would be 24 units.
24 instead of 12.
Correct. So if we were not to have this development standards variance approved, we would do 6 12-unit buildings, the same count of units as is proposed now.
So we approved the height variance that
Increase the
included a
square
2-story building,
It didn't increase the ground square.
the ground square.
Correct. And that is where it's kind of the set forth maximum in the zoning ordinance. There's no.
So the height variance included the 24 units instead of 12.
Correct. It was more or less, it wasn't necessarily specified, I guess, the amount of units. It was just based on the height of the buildings that were are no stipulations as to the amount of units in that variance request.
Okay. Any more questions from the board? We're really thinking tonight. Spent a lot of time. Bart, anything? Nothing? Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you all.
Are there adjacent property owners?
Yes, ma'am.
Adam Davis, and Mindy Davis. Lloyd.
You might have the wrong list, two things. Maybe that's another item.
Got them out of order here. I'll do that. Randall Berwick, or Patricia Berwick. River Ridge 5 LLC. River Ridge Housing Associates. Lanford Properties LLC. Watson Water Company Incorporated. Deborah Heights. Bradley Burgess. Catamaran LLC. Or Amy Hadley.
Okay, is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to this? Okay, I don't see any hands raised.
And I think we've already really approved this.
Yeah.
I agree.
It just, there's an oversight on the square footage.
On the restriction currently in place, yes. Okay, so,
And I don't think there was anyone in opposition when we approved it. I recall.
okay. Well, is it time for a motion then?
I'll make a motion to approve 2024-017. The variance requested, listed on in our packet.
All right.
I'll second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, unanimous this time. Thank you. Okay, looks like we're on to our third item on the agenda. And, okay, it's docket 2024-18 BZA. Special exception to permit a school at 6820, 6906, and 6912 Salem Noble Road, Charlestown, Indiana. The applicant is Greater Clark County Schools. The owners are James A. Goodwin, Janet E. Goodwin, James A. Haas, Marcella M. Haas, William Goodwin, Rose Goodwin, George A. Haas, and Carol Goodwin. Hello.
Hi, good evening. Mark Loeffner, 8207 Harvest Court. I also happen to live about 2 miles down the road from this site.
I'm Kelly Jones. My business address is 608 South 3rd Street, Louisville, 40202, but I am a Clark County resident.
Okay.
Can we go ahead?
Yes, go ahead.
All right. Hello, my name is Mark Loeffner, Superintendent of Greater Clark County Schools, and I'm here today to ask for a special exception from the Clark County BZA in order to build an elementary school on the property described in your packet. As the leader of the school district of almost 11,000 students and 1,400 employees that represents the communities of Jeffersonville, Charlestown, New Washington, Clarksville, and large parts of Clark County, it is very important that I be a forward-thinking superintendent and plan for the future. As we all know, Clark County is one of the fastest growing counties in the state. We also know that the area between Jeffersonville and Charlestown is one of the fastest growing areas of the state and also the county. With this type of growth in our school district, I would be negligent as a leader if I did not plan for this growth and the future of the district and our school communities. Today's proposal helps address the growth that has already been approved by the county, the city of Jeffersonville, and the city of Charlestown. As we go through the proposal, we will address any potential concerns that may exist about this project and current enrollment capacity of the schools that surround this area. At this time, I want to introduce a few people that are with us here today. I have with us Kelly Jones, who's with Sayback Wilson and Lingo, who's our site planner. Also, John Buckwalter, who's our school board president. Katie Hudson, who is our one of our school board members. Keith Freeman is also one of our school board members. Our real estate agent of record is David Bauer, who is here, can answer any questions. And our facilities director, Nate Coots, is also here, can answer any questions. And then Dr. Kim Hartledge is also our deputy superintendent, is here. At this time, I know we only have so much time. I'm going to turn it over to Kelly, and she's going to talk about the site plan.
Thank you for being here this evening. I'm going to try to go through these slides fairly quickly. Eric, I'll give you a cue when it's time. You can see the site is outlined there in red, surrounded by other AG res and residential zoning, several subdivisions in the area. Next slide, please. This is a zoom in of the subject site. So right now it's mostly agricultural. It's got a few homes on it as well. Go ahead and go forward. This is the site plan that we're proposing. So the site plan is based on the Parkwood Elementary School that's being constructed in Clarksville right now. It's a 90,300 square foot building. So we felt that was a good placeholder for what will eventually be a development plan that we bring before you, because it has all of the bits and pieces that a state-of-the-art or a new school would have. So that's just a placeholder at this point, but the location and the site layout is all what you can expect, similar to what you can expect to see when we come back for you with more detail. You'll see that there's two entrances to the property. I've been out on site myself to figure out where we have the best site distance to get in and out of the property. As you know, Salem Noble Road does this the whole way down it. So we feel like those are the best options for entrances. Go ahead and go to the next slide, please. So again, this is a special exception approval that we're requesting. We have significant setbacks from Salem Noble Road and adjoining properties, several hundred feet in all directions. We have drainage, room to handle the drainage on site. We're showing detention basins at the two primary stormwater outfalls, but of course, as mentioned at the beginning of this meeting, we have to go through the drainage board and we'll meet all of their requirements as well. There's going to be no athletic facility lighting, only parking lot and building lighting with timers or sensors, because this is an elementary school. We've got room for future expansion to keep up with the projected growth that the superintendent was talking about. We have separate bus and car queuing on site. Next slide, please. This diagram just kind of shows you what we've planned for how people will enter and exit the site. The yellow represents where cars will enter. The blue represents a separated pre-K drop-off if needed, and then the pink is where buses will enter and everyone will exit. Now, of course, when it's not car drop-off or pickup time, you can go in either entrance, out either entrance, but that would be the way that we anticipate this would work during the peak times. And that allows everybody to queue inside the site so that no one would be backing up on Salem Noble Road. Next slide, please. This is, again, just the drainage exhibit showing kind of how we anticipate the drainage would be directed. Again, we would be meeting with the drainage board and making sure we're meeting all their requirements. And then with that, I'm going to hand it back to Mark, and he can go through our last couple of slides.
If you go to the next slide, site size. I do also want to say that this is a pre-K through 5th grade elementary school. There was some things on social media saying it was a K through 8 building. That's not true. It's pre-K through 5th grade is what it would be. Site size, obviously throughout the district, we know from our past history that we need bigger sites so we can stage cars on our sites, not have traffic backing up into neighborhoods or other roads. And this site provides us 48 acres of land to really do that however we want on the site and make sure traffic stays off of Salem Noble Road in terms of staging in the morning and staging in the afternoon. The road frontage, or I'm sorry, the drainage, that's also something Kelly just mentioned. That's an area we want to help the neighbors. We want to be good neighbors. That's an area where with 48, it's 48 acres with probably 20 to 25 of the 48 acres staying green. We can help the neighbors quite a bit with drainage. Expansion, obviously, we just talked about, you guys just approved more apartments on Stacy Road. We know that there's other homes approved between Jeffersonville and Charlestown. What I've been told, it's up to 2,000 homes have already been platted and approved between Jeffersonville and Charlestown, especially when Charlestown Pike is widened. And we'll talk about that in a second, but there may need to be a expansion in the future on this site, and we have room for that. When you look at road frontage, there's excellent amount of road frontage. Like I said, growth, from what I've been told, and I meet with the mayor of Jeffersonville and the mayor of Charlestown, I try to keep up to date with what you all are doing, is that there's already been close to 2,000, right at 2,000 homes platted and approved in the area between Jeffersonville and Charlestown, which is where the school would be. And when you look at existing capacity, and you go to the next slide, please. One of the things you have to look at is, all right, where are the elementaries that surround this area of Salem Noble Road? And when you look at this, you can see, for us, Pike Elementary, which will open next year, Utica Elementary, which is down in Utica. You have Charlestown Elementary, which will open next summer. And then you have Silver Creek Elementary and Silver Creek Primary, and then Rock Creek also sits close. Now, I've looked at the data on this. I've talked to the people in these other schools. I know what our enrollment is and our capacity is. And I can tell you, every elementary that surrounds this area is either at capacity or will be at capacity within the next 2 or 3 years. So it begs the question, if we're going to continue to approve developments in this area, where are these kids going to go to school as far as elementary school? And so that's why we're here, frankly. If you don't mind going to the next. As far as schools, the research indicates that schools make good neighbors. They increase property values, access to services. We will have less impact on this land in this neighborhood than, say, 200 or 250 homes. I think we could all agree in this room that at some point in the future, that land's going to be developed. Like I said, we're only going to develop about 20 acres of it and leave the rest of it green. We'll have less of an impact on that property than 200 homes that will be rooftops and pavement and more drainage. So I think that's an important note to make about this. And like I said, more green space. We want to be good neighbors, but bottom line is we're trying to keep up with what's going on in this county, what's going on, especially in that area between Jeffersonville and Charlestown, because all the schools around that area, like I said, are at capacity. I mean, if you want to fact check me and call Silver Creek or call Rock Creek, they'll tell you the same thing. I know for a fact Rock Creek is trying to put together a building plan to do something. I know Rock Creek is trying to do the same thing. And obviously, we're trying to do the same thing also to keep up with the growth.
Okay. Questions?
I do. So you're talking, all these other schools are at capacity.
Yes.
And they're expanding, like Rock Creek.
Well,
They have the land to expand.
Discussing it. I don't know that they do. Silver Creek is discussing plans, but I don't know that they have land to expand.
But you all will have land to expand if you ever wanted to.
At this site?
Yes.
Yes.
But there's no future plans of that.
No.
But there's no guarantee of that.
Right. Yeah. It depends on how much growth occurs, how many homes are built out in that area. I mean, right now we know we have a need because all these other schools are at capacity. And if we don't do something, we're all going to have a problem, whether it's Greater Clark, Silver Creek, Rock Creek, whoever's in that or surrounds that area.
I don't see any way you could achieve the backup on the roadway. And that's just the nature of that many vehicles hitting one spot at one time. I mean, it's just, it's hard, that would be impossible to accomplish. I'm sure you all do your best to do that.
Our principals do magic when it comes to getting cars in and off sites. And I will tell you that one thing we also have to remember, if there's ever 200, 250 homes on that site, that's 365 days a year, 7 days a week. You know, schools are open 180 days out of the year, and it'll be a little busy in the morning, a little busy in the afternoon, and that's it. And we're not open on the weekends. You know, so I think that's important to remember.
And as a parent of a Greater Clark Elementary School student, I can tell you that the main traffic that I see at my son's elementary school is car rider drop off and pick up in the morning or in the afternoon at the beginning when they're queuing to wait to pick up. They back out on the road because there's nowhere to go. Here, we'll be able to get all of them on site so that they're not backed up in the road, which is the point. Yeah, it might take a minute for people to get turned in and into the site, but they'll all be fitting inside as they're sitting there waiting on their kid. They're not backed up out onto the public road. And that was intentional. That's one of the reasons that the school is set so far back from the road, is so that we could accommodate all of those vehicles in the site itself. Having the bus traffic and the car traffic entrance separated as well will also help that situation.
And we'll have parent drivers, not juniors and seniors.
That's also correct. I also have a high school student. So I know.
And I also want to add again, there may be a question of, well, why don't you build this on somewhere else, on a different property? I could tell you, working with David Bauer, we've spent the last year and a half looking for properties out in this area. Okay, there aren't a whole lot of properties out in this area available. Right?
So this is for sale. It's not just the property owner contacted you and said, hey, would you have a use for this land? But a lot of times that can happen.
We sought this property out. If I can speak,
Yes.
As the land acquisition person, I've consulted with different corporations for more than 25 years, become somewhat of an expert. I helped to locate Highland Hills, which I'll tell you is 1,700 students on 40 acres, of which about 24 is usable. Okay, so here's what I found in working with school corporations. If you get surplus land on the front end, it solves a lot of problems in the long run. So I know there's a lot of concern about stacking up cars. I'm not an engineer, but most schools are sitting 100 feet from the main access road. This is 600 feet back, and you've got lots of room for stacking. So I'll tell you this, it's my strategy. Most elementary schools are built on 10 acres or less. Maybe there's probably very few in Clark County District built on more than 10 acres. Most high schools are built on 20, 25 acres. This is 48 acres, of which there's about 30 that's highly usable. It's a surplus amount of land, but the reason we went seeking a surplus amount of land is because the road is really holy. We need to get traffic off the road so that we can get buses off the road and so that we can get car riders off the road. I drop a daughter off at Highland Hills every day with 1,700 students, and I watch how they move it. And I'll tell you, this is only proposed for what, 600 to 900 students?
750.
750, somewhere in that ballpark, but this is a surplus. It's about 3 times the site size that is needed, but it was intentional. Yes, somewhat for growth, but mostly so that you can get cars off the roadway and have safe passage.
Thank you. I drove by that site, but what I didn't do is, how far off of 62 is that? Do we know, like, it's a mile?
It's pretty much in between. The goal was, their goal was to get between 403 and 62, where the homes are. So you know where all the homes are. So you've got Bethany, Salem, Noble, Stacy. You got 62, you got 403. That's the quadrant where you need a school. And then in that area, you got a lot of roly-poly land. So this land is really flatter than most, although there's definitely movement to it. There's very little drainage concerns. There's surplus of land, and all around it is single family that is either going to go R1, R2. That will probably go about 3 units per acre. And so at this point in time, there's less of an impact on traffic and drainage with a school. And then at this point in time, it is a surplus of acreage that would allow them to add some additional space if they ever needed it. Because the one thing, as we all know, they're not making any more land. And all around this is subdivision, 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 and there'll be more in the future.
Thank you. I have a question. Is there a regulatory agency that you all have to get your traffic flows and patterns and ingress, egress? Like you go to NDOT and have approvals, or is that just something you all can set up?
Typically, depending on the project and its site, like for instance, one of our other projects we're working on is on 62. Our
traffic study is done through NDOT, but it depends on the site.
So is this one,
I do not believe this will be NDOT because that's not an NDOT road. That would be the county and actually part of the city of Jeffersonville because they are in that area as well.
So that's typically something that, so within my company, we also do civil engineering surveying. I'm a landscape architect by training. We have consultants that we work with that will do traffic studies when required. I know a little bit about the rules. I might do some preliminary research and then hand it over to a traffic engineer to do a study if that's determined. But that is something, that we internally, as civil engineers, planners, can get the ball rolling on, and then if we need to, we turn it over to a traffic engineer and they can do a full-blown traffic study. But that would be something that would come more at the development plan stage, and we're just not there yet.
okay, thank you.
Mm-hmm.
If you wanted to require or make sure that there was a study done, you would have to include that in one of your conditions on this. It's not something that's normally required through the development plan process.
And in our experience, what you typically see with these types of developments would be maybe like a decel right turn lane, something along those lines, which we plan to provide anyway for these entrances that would allow people to get over before they turn in so the people going straight can just keep going. Those are the types of things that you would be likely to see on a development of this size, or of this type. But again, we can always consult with the traffic engineer if necessary.
Would you make that commitment? Decel lines?
Oh, yes.
Study.
Okay.
Absolutely. I mean, that's something we discussed when we walked the site, is that we would definitely need decel lanes. That's something in our proposal that we want to work with the county on, making sure that we get cars and buses off Salem Road as fast as we can.
And then no matter what, 403 is going to bottleneck anyway, because this is what it is. If you go to 62, you got a lot more things the other direction.
Well, I will make a point too, that there's a lot of people who live in that area because it's closer to Silver Creek. They actually travel over to 403 and 31, that intersection, that with a school there, they wouldn't have to do that anymore. So it would actually keep some of the traffic off.
And I know that the state is working on doing a part of the 31 expansion at 403 and 31 right there at the primary school and Silver Creek School. They're getting ready to redo that whole area. So hopefully that will help with 403 traffic flow.
And of course, the other way was the Charlestown Pike expansion. And this, timeline for this, we would want to start construction potentially late next summer, and then it's a 2-year process from there. So this school, it wouldn't open until 2027, summer of 20. So you're talking 2.5 years down the road.
Anything else? Any other questions?
Okay, are there any, thank you very much. No
Thank you.
other questions.
Thank you.
Okay, so now we have the list of adjoining property owners. Remember, you will get 3 minutes, and state your name and address, please, when you come forward.
Mindy and Adam Davis.
Yeah, I'm here.
Okay. Lloyd Casto.
Oh, I'm sorry, did you ask a question? If you have anything you want to say, please come up to the mic. Sure.
Someone else can ask questions.
All right, Adam Davis, 6627 Westwood Drive. One of the questions is we have, like, behind the Whispering House subdivision, there's a tree line. And we're kind of wondering that, for a sound barrier between the homes and the school, like, what's gonna happen? Is there any tree removal or, definitely with the
do is just ask all your questions, and then the board will let the applicant address those after everybody's got their information requested.
So your first question is buffer yard.
Yeah.
Okay.
The other is, traffic already backs up on both like the 62 and 403. So is there any plans? I would think that the lanes would definitely have to be expanded to like 3 or 4 lanes, or it's gonna create, half a mile backlog on each side, would be my anticipation. So if that's not in the plans, I would think that would be a significant issue. So I'm curious about that.
And I can say that would not be part of this plan, and the county would have to address that if it becomes an issue for the state.
And there are things by right that are allowed there right now, like residential development. Okay.
Yeah, and another question is how many buses are we talking? How would be that? Because buses backlog traffic significantly worse than residential cars, so also interested in that.
Are you ready these questions?
Yes, sir.
I wasn't prepared to ask the question.
That's okay. Do you have anything else?
I think we can address them. I mean, the buffer yard, are there any buffer yard requirements that are zones that are in place now that we could apply to this?
Well, there's a 40-foot buffer shown on the plan.
Okay.
Can I answer that question?
Sure.
And I have this plan here. We're not actually buying all the way over to the Whispering Oaks property line. There's still a piece of property between us and you that's gonna remain with the seller. So we're not gonna have anything to do with these trees along the property line.
Okay.
Plus, there's gonna be a buffer as required.
And is what this thing, is it gonna is older detention on?
Detention is purely something that fills up when there's a rainstorm and then empties. So most of the time, it's gonna look like a depression in the ground that's not full of water, unless it's right after a rainstorm.
So will we all be
So
seeing this?
The drainage board will probably make standards where pre-development cannot be more than.
I mean, there's all these trees here, and again, we don't own that property, so I can't say they're gonna stay forever because I don't control it, but we're not gonna do anything with that.
May I say one thing, that when we walked the site with the current property owners, that's one area we looked at real hard, because they brought up that, there is a lot of water flowing through there, and there's a couple homes that take on that water. And we see that as a way that we can help our neighbors, because obviously if we create detention there, I'm not an engineer, but we believe we can help the neighbors there in that area. And we're not gonna disturb the trees or anything like that, but we don't own it as far as.
And my boss did walk the site with us, and he is an engineer, so, I think we all kind of agreed that we would be able to improve that situation, we should be able to.
And also.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Too, because I'm sure drainage is gonna be a concern, so understanding that the drainage rules for the county would require them to hold back increased, water generated from this property and release it, so it's leaving the property at the same rate. So it's not like there's gonna be increased flooding in the area. If there already is, it's just the water may stay high for a longer period of time. So it shouldn't increase any of the problems that may already be out there.
It potentially could improve any current problems with the detention.
Okay, we've got Lloyd Casto, Ronald or Janet Clark, Gregory or Sandra Lips, David or Levon Couch, George or Carol Haas, Greg Bowen or Susan Bowen, Clarence Ogilvy, Frederick Eaton, Anna or James Williams, Tammy Faulkner or Hooker, William Goodwin,
Here. My name is William Goodwin, 6020 High Jackson, plus the property, part of the property that's being developed, and a bunch of other properties around it. The only thing I wanted to say was, with all the development around us, we sat there and watched. We've had the property 224 years, so this is one that I know of in Clark County right now. And we watched all these neighborhoods pop up, and we sat there and we were quiet and we just absorbed it because that was the landowner's rights to do what they wanted to do. And if we had minor concerns, we'd address it and hope for the best. It is annoying for the neighborhoods because 95% of people are great. The other 5% are the ones we see on camera all the time, trespassing, vandalizing, running over the crops, throwing rocks at the cows, you name it, they do it all the time because we're the park and they have no respect at all for our property. And it's time to start selling up some of it. And I prefer not to see a neighborhood. I prefer not to look at the back of the houses. We border this. Our family still borders more than anybody else of this property. And we're not going to do anything that we wouldn't want anybody else to see or us to see. And the opportunity came up to have an elementary school. I was adamant about elementary school because we're all a little worried about high school drivers tearing down our road. And our road is entertaining. Roller coaster road. I drove like an idiot too when I was a kid on that road. But I had big concerns. I did not want to see Silver Creek problems. I get stuck in that every morning. I hate that. And I know they can't prevent that by any means, all of it, but I wanted to make sure they had enough land to do what they had to do to bring in what they could to limit that. I do like the idea that, yes, there's more traffic at certain times, but unless I completely forget, I can work around that. There's other roads, there's multiple roads to go out. And right now, these houses that are surrounding us have children. This school's coming out here to our property because of them. And it's to serve their children. These kids are on the road. They're going to school. They're not flying to school. They're in vans, they're in buses, they're there. So if this doesn't get approved, not only do you get a neighborhood at some point with God knows how many cars, you're going to get the traffic for the school still because it's getting built out there somewhere. We may be the cut-through road to avoid it on the next school. That's all I have to say. Thank you.
Thank you.
ASB LLC. John or Deanna Spivey. Limestone Creek Homeowners Association. Gary or Alma Reinhardt.
I'm Alma Reinhardt. This is my husband Gary, and we live at 6621 Westwood Drive in Charlestown in the Spring Oak subdivision. I didn't have anything planned to say tonight, but I did have a couple of questions. Buffer zone was mentioned, other than the property that will still be retained by the farmer. And I'm curious if there's any vegetation planned for that buffer zone. And then also, will the land between Whispering Oaks and this property that the school board has purchased, will that stay zoned for agricultural use if this is approved? And then also, will the drainage, we have an in-ground swimming pool that we've had major drainage problems with in the past. We've partially remedied that on our own and with some help from some other agencies. And I'm just curious if the drainage board will hold some kind of meeting or hearing or provide information that we could have knowledge of or have input on.
They do hold them.
They do hold meetings. Would we get notice of that being an adjacent homeowner? Don't know.
Operate with them, so I don't know.
Okay. All right.
I have not heard of hearings or anything like that on the drainage reviews.
Okay,
It's strictly an administrative type operation through the drainage board.
okay. I assume I could contact them to inquire.
Correct.
So that's my only questions about the vegetation for buffer zone and the land between that's not being purchased. Did you have something?
Keep talking about it
Just
existing.
one of you gets to speak.
Oh. Okay.
On the buffer zone, they're just required to leave that area in vegetation. It could be grass, it could be trees. It looks like it's currently trees. I can't imagine them spending the money to go in there and clear cut something that's already there.
So they can just use existing vegetation.
And then the rest of the property outside of that, this boundary would remain agricultural zoning.
I understand. That's it. Thank you.
Well, the issues you had with your pool, were they there from day one when you built it? I mean, were you there first and the houses went in? Or?
The pool was there when we purchased the home.
Okay.
So I think some of our neighbors have similar issues. We're just the end point. We have a pool for it to dump into.
They're gonna have a lot of green space detention. I just, stormwater, I think is just gonna benefit it.
Right. I would also be curious where the retention pond water will be drained from. She mentioned it's an indentation that would fill up and then be drained. How is that?
There's
going to
probably a
impact
ditch
the-
line that would have a natural waterway that's already there that would discharge into at a slow rate.
There's a slide if you guys want to go through it. The next one, I think, actually.
It's right there.
But the next one is specifically drainage. Oh, that's going, yeah, that's not our presentation, that's the.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, there you go.
There it is.
And there's already channels on where it says to existing outfall. There are already outfalls or outlets there where the stormwater is coming off the site in a ditch up there and in a culvert under the road on the bottom.
I'm in the back one because I'm towards the back.
Yeah, so, and that's one of the places, that's what Mr. Loeffler was saying earlier, that this is an area where we think we have an opportunity to make some improvements there.
Okay, we've got Tabitha or Matthew Griffith.
Yes. My name is Matthew Griffith. I'm at 6909 Salem Noble Road. I'll be basically right across from this property. I've lived on Salem Noble for current house about 7 years, and previous house in Salem Noble for about 5 years before that. So we've been there for a while, and I'm quite familiar, obviously, with the area. Traffic patterns, all that kind of stuff, and I would just say, our concern would definitely be that it just doesn't sound to us like it's been very well thought out, the whole getting that traffic in and out of there, right? So I guess, what I'm saying is I would have a genuine concern for public safety. If there is a plan, it'd be nice to hear it, hear some more specifics, and I no disrespect, but I think I heard him refer to it as magic. Basically it's a big deal, right? You get all those buses coming through there. It's going to cause a tremendous amount of backlog on that road. There already is. So I just maybe like to hear a little more detail on that. Thanks.
Thank you.
Michael Eaton.
I'm his wife, Brandy.
Okay.
My name is Brandy Eaton, and I live directly across the street at 6903 Salem Noble. And my concerns are the fact that, yes, the school does bring greater property value, but that also means my property taxes are going to be raised, which I don't appreciate, and I know other people don't. Road concerns, because it is a very hilly and dangerous area. People go very fast down our road all the time. There's nowhere to pull anybody over there when they do go that fast. I almost get ran over coming out of my driveway no matter what time of day it is. I can't imagine the peril it would be for bus drivers or parents dropping their kids off. Even if you put in a turn lane, you're going to have to take out other people's yards and things, potentially across the street as well on our side. that kind of poses a concern for us of losing property, as well as my neighbors right there, including my in-laws, the other Easton's mentioned. And it's just a very dangerous road for that much traffic to be on, whether it would be a neighborhood or a school system. And they mentioned already renovating and building new properties, why can we not just renovate those or add on to those versus constructing a whole new building and causing county taxes to go up as a general rule when you build that much. And those are kind of my concerns. And I don't know if they have any answers for those or not. So yeah.
We're really making a presentation to the board, not asking questions.
Yeah, I have no, the property tax, I can't answer that question, the speed that you're talking about. I could probably guarantee you that 2 times a day, it's gonna slow it down. There won't be people speeding through that. Possibly.
Maybe though, but possibly is the thing, like, I don't feel like it's a safe enough road to put cars with families coming and going twice a day in, like, when I can barely turn out of my driveway, because they had to put a sign up for my driveway to say, hey, watch out, there's a driveway here. What are they gonna do with a school? More signs that people don't follow? But that's just my thing. Thank you.
Thank you.
Anthony or Erica Rosado. Renee Culverhouse. Nicholas or Denise, Nicholas Sharon or Denise Deaton. Here.
Like everyone else, when everything prepared, just gonna kind of talk. So yeah, our house is gonna be put up.
State your name, please, and your address.
Nicholas Sherman, 5593 Limestone Creek. Yeah, I can see where our house is right there. I can hit that school with a baseball, and it's all said and done. We've only been in the neighborhood for about 9 months, and the reason why we picked that spot was it's quiet. You are 10 minutes from Best Buy, but 10 minutes from like 8 goat farms. It's great. Like to wake up this morning and my coffee here, chickens and roosters, not buses. The previous 20 years, I lived real close to Veterans Parkway, and that place was gridlocked twice a day for 3 hours. When all these schools get out or whatever. We moved trying to get away from that. And I'm sure a lot of people here can attest. One dead groundhog on Seal Noble shuts the road down. Like what's the buses going to do? What's sheer amount of influence. And I wouldn't forget some housing area. It's like, we were in a housing area, it's quiet. It's quiet all the time. Put 2 housing areas in there. I would much rather have that than a school. I mean, if they could make every road around there a 5-lane highway, put a 1/4 mile of tree and a wall around the school, then sure, have that. But otherwise, where it stands now, it would be a disaster. I don't even know how you could. It's like what they did with the Young Center in Louisville. Anytime there's a little concert in that place, it's a 5-mile radius of free line. You can't get it. Just avoid it. There's nothing else. I don't really have any questions or anything. That's like these.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Zachary or Katie Mills. Juanita Moreno. Morgan Jordan Jacobs. Troy Crawford. Nicholas or Kimberly Court. Hannah or Jessup Donahue. James or Dorothy Sprayberry. Brianna or Ethan Leach. Paul and Vicki Bonifield. Ronald or Pamela Tetton. Christopher or Kelly Box. James or Marie Boston. Charles Deneau. John Love. I'll do it.
Hi, my name is Chuck Delmio, 6300 Skycrest Court. My house sits at Skyline Acres. I'm the last house heading towards 403. The drainage ditch that's being mentioned funnels right through my backyard. Heavy rains over the years will wash out the culvert in front on the road. I've had to call the county once at least to get some more riffraff rocks put out there to build up that road. I have a drainage tunnel in my backyard, and sometimes when the rain is heavy enough, it will not handle the amount of rain coming from the other side of the street where this is proposed. And it will overflow my yard and down the street into Skycrest Court. I don't know how they plan to control that. There's a lot of water coming down through there, and that's my concern.
Thank you.
John Love. Sandra or David Hollabaugh. Frank or Jennifer Paterka. Scott or Mona Simpson.
Hi, I'm Mona Simpson, 6617 Westwood Drive, my husband Scott. We're here today to voice our concerns regarding the building of the elementary school. I'm not going to spend a lot of time on traffic, but to reiterate just a few points. There is a lot of volume there. We've been there 10 years, as has been confirmed by the school board. The traffic on the road is horrendous. It is dangerous. There are signs. People are doing 30 miles an hour they're supposed to. They're doing 50. We hear squealing at night. There's a ton of blind spots, so safety is a concern. So I'm just going to let that go because I think everyone is expressing that. I don't want to repeat on it. We're a little bit concerned about the road being widened. It seems as though the buildings are built here in Indiana, and then, oh gosh, 2 years later, 3 years later, of course the road's not wide enough because of growth. Well, the road's not wide enough now, but if it is expanded, now we have more noise, and as the gentleman said earlier, we also went out there for the quiet. Our property directly borders this property. So I want to take a moment to talk secondly about the drainage issues. I've been working, I do the landscaping, my husband does the lawn. I've been working with the city of Jeffersonville with Andy Crouch for the last 5 years of the 9 that we worked there. They have come out there, they have regraded the entire ditch line that they're talking about. It's actually in front of where the retention pond is. We would be right on this side of that. The ditch that's there gets so much water that when it drains from the entire corner of Westwood Drive at Whispering Oaks, all that water comes down to one drain passing through our ditch, through our neighbor's pool who spoke earlier. So if any more water is brought into that, the city has come out and regraded it, reseeded it. It lasts for 2 years. And then that water, it's 8 feet higher than our property is. So initially when the development was built, there were not enough drainage, whatever they're called, the brown things. They were not storm sewers. There were not enough put in. Then it was annexed from Charlestown into Jeffersonville. And if you want to, you can talk to Andy or Jonathan. There's nothing they can do. You can't push the water up the hill. It's going to come down. And we recognize that. We've worked with it and done what we can. But I guess that's really that. All I have to say, we have to say really is the traffic is an issue. I really don't want anything, but I know that ship is going to sail because that's just how this is, and we have to adapt and change to that. But I personally don't want schools. We don't want to look at, or I don't want houses. We would rather have a school also. A little concerned about the lights, if there's going to be bells ringing, some of those kinds of things. But really our main concern right now is protecting our property, being that this is going to be Charlestown's property, and I've been dealing with the city of Jeffersonville. I don't know how that's going to be coordinated. And I'm understanding from them that the rule is the drainage should not get worse, but may get better. That doesn't mean it will get better. Okay, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Deborah Taylor Meyer. Stephen or Julie Bush. Kayla Mayfield. Adam or Megan Schrock. John or Christy Reeves. Whispering Oaks Homeowners Association, Phase 1. Robert or Evelyn Patterson.
Hi there, Robert Patterson. My wife Evelyn, we live at 6009 Heavenhill Drive. And thanks for the opportunity to speak. A lot of the things, I'm going to be brief because I've heard it, you don't want redundancy. I've heard the proponents describe Salem Noble as roly-poly, hilly, and a roller coaster. Who wants two kids on that? I wouldn't want my grandkids. But,
Quiet. Excuse me.
the other thing I wanted to mention, the gentleman talked about, Ellen and I feel like we've worked hard in our life. We built a house in Limestone Creek, and we wanted to enjoy the tranquility, the quasi-rural setting. You put a school in there with light pollution, and you talk about a subdivision with 200 cars going out. They don't all do it at the same time. This is going to create a traffic nightmare. And third, Mayor Moore was talked about this in November 22. WOKY had it. And he said it wasn't a good idea. What's changed? You can look that up on WOKY.
He's in Jeffersonville, this is the county. Mayor Moore is.
Right. But, okay, well, I thought you might have a pull. Thank you. That's all I got.
Jonathan Gaddis. Zachary or Johanna Pritchard. This last one, yeah.
Thank you. Okay, that concludes the public portion of our meeting. I'd just like to, I guess off the cuff, say that these kinds of issues, we see divisive issues, and we just hope that you all remember that it's important to be good neighbors, and it's important to, even when we differ on major issues, to be good neighbors. So it's just a little thought I had going forward. And any other comments from this board?
So are you going to ask the questions?
Yeah, it sounded like we addressed all the questions except the number of buses. So would you have an estimate on the number
We
of buses?
anticipate running 12, based on what the enrollment will be. But there may be more car riders than buses in terms of riders out in a more rural site. So we're basing that off on other elementaries that are.
Excuse me.
About 750 students.
So how many buses was that?
12.
12, okay.
12.
And on this map, the 615 lineal feet that you've got marked in blue, does that go all the way out to here?
No, so the yellow would be 1,430 feet total, all the way out to the road. Pre-K would be an additional 615 on top of that would just be for the pre-K drop-off, should they want to separate them like they do at my son's school. Then the bus loop is separate from that, so.
So this is 615.
Yeah, just the blue line is 615. The yellow line all the way out to Salem Noble is the 1430, and then if you add the dashed, it would be an additional 560.
Almost 2,000.
What do you have for
And
buses, though?
I don't know that I measured that, but there's more than enough room to get 12 and probably 3 times that amount buses off the street and parked, and then back out. But the other piece that goes with that is that a lot of times in these elementary schools, you see them double up the lanes, so you have 2 lanes of entry. So that really could even be doubled. I don't think we'll need it to be doubled because it's already plenty long, but there's more than enough room on this site to accommodate even an expanded version of this school.
And that's what I was referring to when principals work their magic in terms of double stacking, triple stacking, so that we get the cars on our property off roads as fast as possible.
But this roadway, there's another graph that shows that you're 600 feet off the road. So while this is not measured, there is another graph that shows that this is, the school setback 600 feet. So if you count 600 one way, 600 the other way, and another 600 feet, there's probably 1,800 linear feet for buses. And I'm not sure what the distance of 12 buses is, but a bus can't be more than.
Well, you can see
You're
the
talking,
dimension of
you're
a
talking a
bus
couple
like
football
this.
fields.
I mean, yeah, you're talking about 1,800 feet, probably 900 back, 900 return. Bus is what, 40 some odd feet maybe, I'm not sure what a bus is.
I think though what the concern is of this room is when the buses come out onto the road
Sure.
and how much time that's gonna take and how much time it's gonna take out of each of their lives
If
and.
they have a transportation engineer, and what they'll do is they'll send buses to make a loop, have the buses make a right turn, and at that point in time, they'll plan and strategize. Buses come in one way, buses go out one way, buses make a right turn. You can send 12 buses out with a right turn in a matter of a handful of minutes. I mean, I watch this done every day at bigger schools on smaller campuses.
Silk Creek actually they have someone out there that directs traffic at that time, and they get those buses out.
And I will tell you that this school would have a full-time SRO.
Yeah.
On site with the students.
Silver Creek has 3 campuses on probably less than half the state.
And again, I want to reiterate too, we walked the site and picked the locations of these entrances based on where you could see the farthest, so you could see what was coming. So not only can you see what was coming, but people will be able to see you coming out because you're on the higher parts of the site. So site distance was something that we definitely took into account when we were laying out this concept plan.
And unlike a residential subdivision will have multiple entrances. It'll use up more of the space, and a residential developer by nature isn't gonna have the earth moving equipment that they're gonna have out there. So when you're talking about putting a site back here, they're gonna have the ability to move a lot of earth and then create this blister, this entrance and exit lanes, unlike a residential developer that's gonna go and occupy almost all of the space. So this site has been well planned out to be back off the road, and as far as the ability to stack, is what they call it, stack buses, stack cars. I'm not an engineer, but you could do the stacking, you could get all 12 buses at the same time, off the road at the same time. Now, when they exit, you just need a strategy to turn right. You know, you can exit and turn right or have an SRO out there holding traffic, so it's not like traffic won't stop for 5 minutes.
Thank you, David. Thank you.
Said,
Thank you.
Yeah.
Okay, any more questions?
So I like the play area in the back. I mean, so the area, say 400 feet in the front yard where the front detention pond is, that'll just be green space, correct?
Correct. There's already kind of a natural depression you can see in the contours there, and we'll just make that be more of a stormwater management area and then lawn out there between the parking lot and San Noble Road.
Will the existing homes be demolished?
Any other questions, Eric? Any other questions?
No, I think they were addressed.
Okay. Okay. All right.
Anybody else want to get it?
I live on Salem Noble, I would appreciate it.
on the other two.
Well, I feel like we have so many in the audience that might want to have a minute that it could take.
It's not that, we've talked about traffic, we've talked about drainage.
Adjoining neighbors.
There's not much else to
There
talk
are
about.
probably 50 names.
Yeah, we've had lots of comments, so I feel like we've heard the issues.
Infrastructure.
Yeah. Is there anything?
I think
Have any more
we've
questions?
talked about traffic,
Okay.
we've talked about drainage,
Safety.
we've covered, I think,
Committee's
concern,
closed
what
for
about,
public comment.
I don't know what else we can really cover. I want to make a motion to approve 2024-18 BZA. With the requirement of a decel lane approved, commitment approved by the county engineer. For traffic, based on the finding of facts of adequate internal circulation we provided to avoid traffic congestion in County Road. So proposed setbacks provide ample buffer for any anticipated off-site impacts. The area is primarily developed for residential and proposed school will provide a needed service in the area. Commitments obtained for water and sewer service and stormwater detention will be provided, and site plan designs is designed to avoid child drop-off traffic from blocking the county road.
Do you think you need to clarify that condition any further?
I don't know that with a decel lane, agree with the county engineer to address his concerns, then I think that would meet that satisfaction with that commitment.
Okay.
So you're gonna widen it to 3 lanes?
So
It's up for a vote, it's not just.
I hear a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Got a second? Any more discussion from this board? Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Motion is passed, motion approved. Pardon? Yes.
Already decided. One of those against Greater Clark County Schools.
Kim, we have any further business to do? We're stopping. We still got a meeting.
Okay, next item of business is to approve the minutes of our August meeting.
I'll make a motion to approve the minutes.
Okay, I'll second that. All in favor?
Aye.
Motion approved. Unanimous approval.
Thank you so much.
Is there any other resolutions, communications?
I'll make a motion to adjourn.
And it has, all in favor, say aye.
Aye.